You are watching Access LaPorte County, Channel 97. Coming up next is the February 13th, 2024 meeting of the Michigan City Waterworks Board. You can find more information for this meeting by visiting www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Call the meeting of the Water Board to order. Today is Tuesday, February 13th. First item is approval of the executive session minutes held on January 23rd.
I make a motion to approve the record of the executive session held January 23rd, 2024. Second.
Motion second that we approve the record from the executive session held on the 23rd. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approve the minutes of the meeting held on January 23rd.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting held January 23rd, 2024. Second.
Motion second that we approve the minutes from the meeting of January 23rd. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Purchase orders.
All right, before you is a monstrous list of 18 purchase orders. Some of that's because it's the beginning of the year, we've got some work to get done. So, the first item is to K2 Industrial Service. This is hydro excavation at 515 Franklin Street for a main break. So this was a confirming PO for $2,590. The second one is to USA Blue Book. This is a handheld valve operator for $3,630.50. The third is to Ferguson. These are Rams horns for stock for $4,120. The next item is Ferguson. This is sewer repair supplies and 4-inch main for stock for $5,442.14. We keep a few sewer related items in case we catch a sewer line while we're working. So, the next item is to Ferguson also. This is 4-inch repair sleeves for $944 for stock. The next one is to Granger. This is a hot water supply pump for a heat exchanger for $2,944.46. This next one is to Gaspoda. These are chlorine and turbidity analyzers. These were in our business plan for this year to replace. The amount is $62,547.82. The next one is to M.E. Simpson to test our high service water meter. This is the main meter at the plant to make sure it's accurate going out the door for $2,850. The next purchase order is to Best Painting. This is to repair, prime, and paint the Beverly Shores station. The interior piping inside the station has a lot of damage from the humidity, so this is to get it all painted up for $5,500. Number 10 is to Integrity Municipal Systems. This is to acid wash the chlorine vapor scrubber system. It also is replacing the chemical that's used in that. This is for $49,410. The next item is to McCann. These are repairs to our number 1 case backhoe. This is confirming for $3,061.87. We needed to get the piece of equipment in the shop repaired and back on the road. The next item is to Ferguson. These are a 3-inch and a 4-inch pump for $4,545.17. During that main break that we had, we found that we had a couple of pumps that were non-functional, so we're replacing the ones that are bad. The next item is to Pollard Water. This is that actually should say sludge master pump for $4,293.70. This is also a trash pump that we can use, which is submersible. Number 14 is to Ferguson for repair clamps. These are for stock for $932. The next item is to Midwest Meter. This is 2-inch compound meters with transponders. This is also for stock, putting on the shelf for $31,965.90. The next purchase order is to Schaffner Tire. This is rear tires for dump truck 14. So this is 4 tires for $1,732.96. Number 17 is to J&B West Construction, alumina siding and fascia repair at our distribution center for $2,275.85. And the last one is to Midwest Meter. These are 3-inch compound meters with transponders, also for stock for $19,257.60.
Right, anybody have any questions on the purchase order?
Make a motion to approve the list of purchase orders dated 2/13/2024.
I'll second it.
Motion second that we approve the purchase orders as of February 13th. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Claims.
Motion to approve the list of claims dated February 13, 2024.
I'll second it.
Motion second, we approve the claims dated February 13th. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Bad debt list.
Make a motion to approve the bad debt list dated February 13th, 2024 for bookkeeping purposes only.
I'll second it.
Motion second, we approve the bad debt list as of February 13th for bookkeeping purposes only. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Financial statements. Chris?
We just went through our cash flow on page 2 real quick. We took in $689,759 in receipts. Our disbursements total $381,708, not including our monthly transfers. We did spend $18,176 on inventory items and $6,433 for capital expenditures. Left us with an ending balance of $501,202. On page 3, our water treatment line was a little bit over our forecast on the expense section. We had purchased a heat exchanger for the head house for $8,500 there. And our general line is a little over. We had our WTH annual support fall in there, as well as our folding machine maintenance annual fee. Our net loss for the month was $48,078. Year to date, we had a net income of $1,294,756 before our depreciation expense, and our net loss of $181,244 after our depreciation expense was included. On page 4, our materials and supplies line was a little bit higher than forecast. We had purchased quite a bit of cold mix, limestone, and asphalt at the distribution center. And then our miscellaneous line includes our WTH annual support with $6,377 in that line. So unless there's any questions, that's actually all I've got.
Any questions of Chris? In the financial.
Motion to approve the financial statement, December 2023.
I'll second it.
There's a motion second, we approve the financial statement as of December 31st, 2023. As presented, any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we have our presentation of the capital improvements plan. Westwood Engineering, Kirk Warner.
Members of the board, appreciate you having us come up here today and talk about the capital improvement plan that's in front of you today. Chris, thank you for inviting us up here as well today to do this presentation. This is a legacy that has started even maybe before some of you and is being continued with you in regarding the 2024 capital improvement plan. And this started, with the legacy of Randy Russell, and is being continued with Chris now at the helm. So Chris and Randy back in 2020 contacted Wessler Engineering. We did the previous capital improvement plan, and they've been doing this for over a decade for Michigan City, and wanted us to come up and go through, start the evaluation and understanding the future capital needs of the Michigan City Water utility. As some of you know, I mentioned this before, when I first came up here, I didn't know what to expect when I came through the plant, but I was very surprised of the maintenance that has occurred and how the plant has been kept over the years. I get the opportunity not only to, in my past job, to travel the state of Indiana, but the country too, and see water treatment plants. And a water treatment plant of this age is in great condition compared to relatively other water treatment plants across the country. So that's a legacy that you guys should be proud of. For this capital improvement plan, we went back and we looked at the 2013 capital improvement plan, so this is an update of that. But as we went through, we also did an asset management plan evaluation, going through the entire system. We went through the belly of the plant and almost all the assets that are critical to the drinking water system, from production all the way through the distribution system. And we evaluated the critical items that were $5,000 or greater, and then we scored those, and those were ended up determining a business risk analysis associated with that. With the 2013 capital improvement plan, we updated and looked at the existing conditions. We updated the completed projects, so there's a list of completed projects from 2013. I'm going to make sure all those have been completed, which ones were still outstanding, and looking at ranking those as we went through this process as well. With that asset management plan, we went through all the items. We looked at the probability of failure, the consequence of failure of these items, the redundancy, if there are redundancies within the systems and how that affects the operations. And then each of these was then determined with a business risk evaluation based on a scoring platform. These items were then looked at, and the control systems, SCADA, all those things were looked at to ensure that the plants are operated properly. And also we looked at the maintenance, the major maintenance items associated with the plant, and to make sure those were included in this capital planning as well. As part of this too, not all utilities do this, but Chris wanted the hydraulic model updated for your system. And in the past hydraulic model, not all the pipes were included within the hydraulic model. So within the new hydraulic model, we included the smaller size mains, 4 and 6 inch in the model, which really revealed some items within the system that could have the opportunity to be improved upon. And Andy will be showing some of that later, and how that visually will show up in the system. And then most importantly, input from the Michigan City staff. We've had numerous meetings with them to understand the operation of the plant, the items that are critical to their operations to ensure clean, safe drinking water is delivered to the customers on a daily basis, and also to meet the regulatory needs currently and in the future as well. Because as you guys know, there's always new regulatory requirements coming out. We looked into the future in that as well, and some of the items that will affect the utility. As part of that, the goals of the 2024 comprehensive plan is to look at the next 20 years and project what the needs are of the distribution system and the plant operations, as well as the utility as a whole. So I'm going to turn it over to Andy next, and Andy's going to talk about a lot of the projects and the components associated with that. This is the kind of agenda from today. If you go to the second page that Andy will be presenting, you'll see in there, she lists the page number and the colored tabs. We made it easy for you guys to go to the colored tabs as she goes through those, and you didn't have to leaf through the book. So, thanks for Andy.
Yeah. So just to kind of give you a quick rundown of what is actually in this book. It starts off by just going through the existing facilities for the water treatment plant and all of the water assets in the system. And then it kind of points out the needs for improvements within each of those existing facilities. And there's kind of some main areas for improvement. So looking at replacing and upgraded aging infrastructure, planning for future development and extension of the system, improving water quality, improving pressures, and adding additional storage capacity. And then the report goes into the actual projects. So I'm gonna have you flip to, this one's not tabbed, so apologies. After page 3 in the report, there's the numbers on the bottom right-hand corner. There's a table that pulls out, it's a big table that looks like this. And did everyone find it?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay, fine. This is kind of an overview of all of the projects that are discussed in the capital improvements plan. And just to kind of get you oriented with this table, it breaks down the projects into project type. So it looks at water treatment plant projects as the first heading, distribution projects as the second heading, storage tanks and booster stations, and then some miscellaneous projects. And then within each of those categories, the projects are ranked by priority, 1 being the most priority and 5 being the least priority. And then on the columns to the right, we have the costs for each project and what year those would occur in. So it goes 2024 to 2028 are individual years, and then 2029 to 2034 is grouped, and then 2034 to 2044, so a 20-year capital improvements plan. And then the costs at the very bottom are the total estimated costs per year. So for the last 2 columns, it's divided by either the 5 or the 10 years, just so you can get oriented with the table a little bit. And I would like to talk about a few of these projects on the list specifically, and then if there's questions and want to talk about some other projects, we can certainly do that as well. So the first project I want to talk about is the one labeled 6.1.1.4, which is replace the low lift pump and motors and install VFDs. So you can see from the table, this project has a total cost of $764,000. And we have the costs occurring in 2026. And this project, I believe, has been discussed a little bit before, but it involves installing VFDs on all of the low lift pump motors. So these are the pumps that bring the raw water from the intakes to the water treatment plant Clearwell. And the VFDs would allow the operators to have better control over the process and also allow for greater efficiency. In order for these VFDs to be installed, the motors on the pumps have to be replaced with inverter duty rated motors. And then some other miscellaneous electrical and SCADA improvements would have to go along with that. Does anybody have any questions about that project? And then another project I wanted to specifically discuss is covering the flocculation and sedimentation basins at the water treatment plant. And if you flip to the tab that is yellow, so the second one there, you see a site plan of the water treatment plant. And just to point out what the covers would be over, at the very south end of the figure here, you see the flocculation and sedimentation basins. Those are what are open to the environment currently. And so this project would include adding a structural deck and roofing so that these basins would be covered, just to make them less vulnerable to the environment, the elements, and any vandalism that may occur. And one thing about this project is it would need to be investigated a bit further for feasibility and structural integrity of what's currently there. So some potential issues that would need to be investigated are things like snow loads and drift loads, just roof drainage, access to the interior once the decking is over the basins, and then just looking at how the foundation, the loads on the foundation would increase with this roof. So just getting a better idea of what kind of structural work would need to be done with the basins. And then, I don't think I mentioned, but this project, the cost would be incurred in 2026 to 2027, and it's about $1.7 million for the project. Does anybody have any questions about that one? The next project I want to point out is, you can also see it on this same figure, just replacing the roofing on the north pump building. So that's the building kind of on the upper left side of the figure. It's about 9,500 square feet of roof replacement, and this roof is just currently in poor condition and has several leaks and missing tiles. And some of the structural improvements that would be needed for the roof are unknown at this time, but it's estimated that it would cost around $880,000, and those costs would be incurred in 2026.
I do want to say that we have addressed the leaks, so that it's not currently leaking, but they're temporary repairs. They're, basically Band-Aids that you can put on for now.
Does anybody have any comments or questions on this one? The next project I want to point out and talk about is something that we're calling the annual water main replacement program. And so we typically estimate the lifespan of a pipe to be about 100 years. And if you took 1% of the water mains per year, it's approximately 12,800 feet of Michigan City's water system, and looked at replacing that much, so 1% of the system per year, estimated at about $250 per linear foot of water main. That would be $3 million per year spent towards replacing aging water mains that are past their useful life. So just an annual water main replacement program, so you stay on top of all of the aging water mains.
I do want to add something to that one. Currently, we have about, out of our 240 plus miles of water main, over 40 miles of that is over 100 years old already. So we have a lot of old main. The good news is because we have a lot of sand, that actually helps our main last a lot longer than if we were in clay. But we're going to have to start planning some of these out and moving forward with some of them, because they will eventually start breaking on a more regular basis, so we'll need to be ahead of that. Plus, the city wants to pave streets and stuff, and obviously if we don't want to have main breaks right after it's paved, I don't like cutting up fresh pavement.
Does anybody have any questions about that? And another project I want to talk about is the Thomas Street, Carroll Avenue, Woodland to Tank water main. So in this report, there's a lot of distribution projects, and one of them, if you flip to the hot pink tab, the third figure that's tabbed up there, you can see just the wrap of the water main replacement and the existing water mains that are there now. And just wanted to point this one out because there's been a lot of water main leaks in this area, and this project may have to be accelerated due to just all the leaks that need to be repaired. And this project eliminates some of the exposed railroad crossings, the ones that are hanging under the overpass that have caused issues in the past.
And we are probably in a position of having to accelerate that a little bit because the main that is attached to the bridge does have a leak on it. So we're going to have to look at this possibly sooner than later. Might not even be based on the schedule. It's probably going to be a lot earlier than that. We just got that information a week or so ago, so.
Okay, and then another project that I want to touch on is the Eastwood Ground Storage Tank and Booster Station. So if you go to the red tab figure, it kind of shows the entire distribution system, but you can see where this ground storage tank and booster station would be placed. It's near the pink zone here with the circle and the rectangle. It's the leader pointing to it says proposed booster station and ground storage tank. So it's at the intersection of Eastwood and, I'm not
Tryon.
what is it?
Tryon.
Okay, Tryon, I thought it was Taiwan. So that's where it would be located. In the hydraulic model, we were looking at some low pressures in this area, near 40 PSI, and they also get some low pressure complaints from this area. So looking at a booster station to serve this pink area that's shown on the figure that you have open, and also a ground storage tank for storage for this area, and fire flow and emergency water storage. And then, sorry, I have you jumping all over the book, but if you go to the front cover, there's some sheets in the front tab.
Yeah.
And these are some of the screenshots from the hydraulic model. And these lines on these figures are showing pressure. So it's a little bit confusing when you're first looking at it, but it's kind of like elevation contours, but it's pressure contours. So right now we're looking at the area where the booster station would be going. You can see the green lines, which means the pressure is but in the 40s or below, and then kind of getting further out from that, it's getting a little bit higher. So this is the existing system and what the pressures are looking like now without a booster station or any improvements. And then the next two figures kind of show two scenarios for the booster station. The first one, the pressure map with the booster station, shows the booster station active, and so it's increasing the pressures in this area. You can see now this area, instead of being green, it's this dark purple color, which is bringing the pressures up into the 70s. But one issue is that when the booster station is on and it's pulling a lot of water into the ground storage tank, it reduces the pressure upstream, so you can see these kind of like rainbow colors where it's getting down into the 30s. So just one way to fix that is putting a control valve going into the ground storage tank so that it lessens the amount of flow that's going to be going into the ground storage tank, and that is on the next figure, where you can see that kind of upstream decrease in pressure goes away, and the pressures upstream are now okay, and then also the pressures downstream of the booster station, where they were originally experiencing some low pressure issues, are now in this purple range where they're in the 70s.
And the second scenario is in line with our other booster station. Our Paz Road booster station has a similar setup, so we're not pulling too hard on the upstream side of the booster station and creating problems for folks on that side of the booster station. So that's the whole idea around this.
This also, correct me if I'm wrong, also achieve some maybe future goals in regard to further development out that way as well, and help maintain that.
So you'll see that at the very bottom of the page, you can see where Swan Lake Cemetery is, the little circle for Swan Lake Cemetery. That's that area that was just annexed, and we're getting ready to put the large water main in through there. And that's gonna make sure that that area has good solid pressures and flows, because it's going to be industrial. So if a significant user comes in, we'll have all the flows, because we're okay for now, but if we get somebody that's really gonna pull water, it could create some problems down the road. So we do need to plan for this anyway. We're planning for it for other reasons, and so this is just gonna be one additional benefit.
And the storage tank and booster station would be a size for some of those flows down the roads, the future development demands that would happen. And this project, on the table one, we have the cost coming in 2026 and 2027, and it would cost around $8 million for the entire project. Does anybody have any questions about that?
I did want to say also that the design would also be set up in a way that if down the road we even have more development than we can even anticipate right now, there's room for even further expansion too on the booster station. So we wouldn't have to put another booster station, and we could actually expand the capacity of that one.
as well.
Is the soil in that area going to give a difficulty since it's swampy?
What was that, the
Is the
soil?
soil going to give us a difficulty in that area because it's swampy?
That's a good question. I think
That-
in design, they would probably do some evaluation on the soil.
That particular site actually is elevated compared to, like you're probably thinking like the right across the street where the subdivision is there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that particular site is if you go out there, you'll see that that site actually sits up at a higher level. So obviously, you know, there will be soil borings to verify that foundations will be secure before we build any structure there, so.
Even if they dig a hole, it fills with water.
Well, I mean, that's kind of like the POS booster station, that tank, they ran it, they had that issue as well with that tank. So there's special processes involved that keep us from having the tank float out of the ground. We have specific practices we have to follow if we ever empty that tank, because the groundwater is high. Pretty much in most of our system has high groundwater, so.
Okay. The next project I want to talk about is the Beverly Shores ground storage tank. So this one is shown on a figure with the blue tab. Yeah, let me get to it. And this is on the site of the Beverly Shores booster station. So right now the Beverly Shores booster station just pumps from the low pressure zone of the system into the Beverly Shores area. But this project would involve adding a 250,000 gallon ground storage tank for the booster station, so that there's plenty of storage and emergency storage for the Beverly Shores area. And this is kind of similar to the setup again at Paws Road, where there's the storage tank and the booster station, and then the Eastwood proposed booster station and ground storage tank there as well. And the cost for this one we have on the table occurring in 2027 to 2028, and a total cost of around $1.4 million.
And this project, just like the previous project, was part of the hydraulic analysis that showed some of the vulnerabilities associated with the Beverly Shores area, providing the adequate water and pressure to that area.
And then the final project I want to discuss in some detail is the south side elevated storage tank. So if you go back to the figure tabbed in red, you can see some of the potential locations identified for an elevated storage tank. And so this elevated storage tank would be in the high pressure zone. So this is the pressure zone that's currently served by the Paws Road booster station. And right now there's no elevated storage in this pressure zone. And so that means that the pumps at the Paws Road booster station have to pump 24/7 to get the water to provide enough pressure for this pressure zone. So the elevated storage tank would just be providing some of that leeway for this pressure zone and providing emergency storage, so that the pumps wouldn't have to provide the water the entire time. It would be similar to what's currently happening in the low pressure zone, where the pumps can pump to the elevated storage tank and the pumps can turn off if needed, and the elevated storage tank can maintain pressure in that zone. And so right now there's 4 potential locations, and you can see them marked A, B, C, and D. I think the preferred location right now is location A. Is that correct? Okay. But it hasn't been decided on a specific location yet. And this project would cost around $7.2 million, and the cost would occur in 2028 to 2029.
One aspect of this also is that when you have a booster station and you don't have an elevated, when you have pumping and you don't have an elevated storage tank on the backside, you do then become reliant on what's called a pressure relief valve at the booster station in the event that the pumps ramp up too quickly or usage ends really quickly. So for example, we had an incident where some fire apparatus were being tested, and the company that was doing the testing closed the hydrant a little too fast. And that's where we, remember that main break we had in the swampy area next to Von Tobel? That was because the pressure has to go somewhere. And so it finds a weak spot in the main, and that's what happens. So having an elevated storage tank actually relieves some of that as well. And also, because we do not have multiple crossings of I-94, we will need to be able to, you know, if let's say something happened to that crossing of I-94, this elevated storage tank would allow us to make sure that there's still water on the south side of 94 as well for those customers that we are getting now that that project is in completion. A large number of our customers in this pressure zone are commercial and industrial. So we have a lot of fire systems hooked up to this. Some of those fire systems have booster pumps on those fire systems. And so when those things are operated, even when they're testing, we have to know about it and anticipate and prepare, because it'll cause our station to kick up quickly to try and catch up to the loss of pressure. And as soon as they're done, they shut things down. Well, if their pumps are quick start and quick stop, which most of them are, that's when we start having some problems on our end. So we have to, you know, monitor that very closely. That's when it's planned. Obviously, if it's a fire system, it may go off because there's a fire. At that point, you know, we don't know what mains are gonna pop, because, you know, it depends on that. You know, where's the weak spot? It's gonna find a weak spot. That area of our distribution system is a lot of clay, and because it's clay, that's a very corrosive soil, and so it attacks the outside of the water main. So that's why we have a little more issue down there than we do actually up here where it's all sand. That kind of goes back to that comment I made about the sand helping with the age of our water mains.
Does anybody have any questions about that project? In looking at table 1, were there any other, sorry, the big table at the beginning that we were looking at, were there any other projects that you would like to discuss or have questions about?
And just like the past capital improvement plan, things will change. So there'll be things that come up, and you know, criticality issues like Chris mentioned in certain areas, like the crossing over the railroads, is going to come up quicker maybe than another project. So it's always reshuffling that deck and kind of making sure they fall within that business plan and those objectives and goals for the capital spend plan for each of those years that you're looking at. So.
And needless to say, the intention of tonight's meeting is to present this information to you so you have an opportunity to look over it, digest it, ask me any questions you have over the next couple of weeks. And our hope is that at the next meeting we can have this plan approved. In order to reference this for other actions, we need to make sure that this plan gets approved. If there's things that you are very concerned about, we can talk about those as well. Anything that major concerns for you. And if there's things that you could think of that somehow we missed, let me know too.
And if anybody wants to review the full report, we can send you the document. Chris has it in electronic form.
Oh, yeah, no.
This would be an abbreviated version of the basically executive summary with the major capital projects and listing those. So all the meat and potatoes behind it, you know, with the evaluations and the sound engineering practices that we put in this are included in the remaining document. Well, thank you for your time and opportunity to present today. And like Chris said, if you guys have any questions, send them to him. He'll be able to get with us if he has any questions or needs additional documentation. It is. So, thank you again.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and effort that looks like you put into these. Thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance, Annie is one of our PEs at our office, and she does a great job. And then Lori Latham, she's one of our client liaisons with our communities and stuff like that. So she is a liaison to the Northwest Indiana area.
On the local deck that you can show.
So if you guys aren't happy with me or Annie, then good.
Thank you.
Alright. Any old business?
I don't have any old business at this point.
Any new business?
I do have some new business. In your packs, there's a memo concerning US 20 annexation area tree clearing. So, as you know, we're doing this main extension, and the sanitary district is also doing sewer extension over there on US 20 in the annexed area. And one of the things that we discovered quickly is that we need to remove a lot of trees throughout that project. The first, basically, the water main is going to be in the first 15 feet off of the state highway right-of-way in an easement, and then the sanitary is going to be in the next 15 feet. In order to put those pipes in, we're going to have to take a bunch of trees, and a lot of them are small scrub brush trees. They're not high-quality trees or anything. But the issue that we run into is that any tree larger than a 3-inch diameter trunk has the potential of being a home to Indiana brown bat, which is a protected species, and then there's another bat species as well that's also protected. And so those bats migrate, and the requirement is that we would basically have to have the trees out by the end of March in order to beat the bats, I guess is the right phrase. Otherwise, then we would have to wait to do the tree clearing until October. So that means we wouldn't even begin to start laying water main and sewer line until October. So we decided to go ahead and get quotes out of vendors for the removal of these trees. Sanitary district took the lead on this. The bids were, the information was sent out to multiple vendors to gain some bids. At the meeting on Friday, it was a special meeting of the sanitary board. They received one bid, and that was open. The bid was with Woodruff and Sons. And the total amount for that bid was $278,443.88. Now, that's for all of the work, and not all of that work is for our water main. As you remember, we did sign a cost-sharing agreement at our last meeting. We approved that, and the sanitary district also approved it at this meeting this past Friday. So they did sign off on it, so you have a copy of that. And then Haas Engineering, Haas Associates, who was doing the engineering for both of us, they went through the project and they developed some preliminary cost-sharing arrangements. Some of the construction activities might vary a little bit later on down the road, depending on the final design of the projects. But at this point, they anticipated for the tree removal, for the portion where the water and the sanitary are on the same road, that we had 61% based on the length of our portion, and the sanitary district had 39% based on the length of their portion. They're not running as far as we are through that area. That portion of the project, the total bid price was $106,324.22. With us being responsible for 61%, the water portion will be $64,857.77. We do have an agreement with the Board of Works for construction activity to be paid by going through the controller's office. I would consider this construction activity, but we didn't anticipate having to bid this. We didn't anticipate the bad issue. So with that not being anticipated, we've pulled this out of the construction that would have normally been bid with the construction portion. So I will approach the controller's office to see if the Board of Works will pay this when the invoices come on this. If not, that would be the department's responsibility to pay the $64,857.77. Either way, we have to get this done in order to get this water main in. So I guess the recommendation that I have is that the board would affirm the approval by the Sanitary District Board. They approved the bid at their meeting pending review by engineering. And so, like this board to affirm that approval, and then we would need to vote to agree to pay our portion in the event the Board of Works does not agree to pay. So, I believe the Board of Works will, because it's part of the funding that's already been identified for this project.
Well, it looks like you're on like a 6-week time frame, right?
That's why this happened so quickly, yeah.
That's why there's no plethora of bids. Everybody's working.
Everybody's busy, and yeah, that may be why there wasn't more
Yes.
than one.
You need to make a motion? I'll make a motion to, that the board affirm, the recommendation is that the board affirm the approval of the Sanitary District Board and agree to pay our portion in the event of the Board of Works does not agree to pay. Did I say that right?
That's okay. That works.
Sorry. Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor. Any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's all I got for your business.
Okay, any public comment? Director's comments? Someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Adjourn.